You've made your way to Progressively Older. Hi folks, welcome back to Progressively Older. I'm Link, the host here. Progressively Older is the channel you come to when you're getting older and planning on staying progressive along the way. Today we're going to talk about the elements of getting older, what it means to be aging, what's happening to the body, to the mind. And we're not going to be talking about solutions to these. We're just going to be identifying the things that cause the aging process. We're going to talk about that today. But before we do, Naked Appeal, please subscribe if you haven't. Like the videos, like the podcast, spread it around to people, let people know that it's out here. Got to grow, can't do it without you. So help us out. Let's start a community and keep it going. So on Wednesdays, we talk about being progressive and the politics and that sort of thing. And on Fridays, we talk about getting older, and you guessed it, it's Friday. So I have a buddy, and he's in his early 70s. And just the other day, he said, wow, I feel just as good as I did 10 years ago. Well, I'm here to tell you, folks, I've known him for 7 of those 10 years, and he doesn't feel like he did 10 years ago. Not close. He said everything replaced from the waist down, and some of those pieces multiple times. Getting up from a sofa is sometimes a 2-3 time try proposition. It didn't used to be. Walking around, it is slightly bent over. He's had some real challenges to his mental health. His wife passed away this year. She suffered dementia and cancer, and it was a rough go. And he's not the same man he was 10 years ago. And what we're talking about today is the different mechanisms of how we age, what happens to us both physically and mentally as we get older. It's not avoidable. It's not something that we can just imagine isn't going to happen to us. It's not going to happen to me. It's going to happen to us. And there's a certain freedom of embracing that, of accepting it and knowing that this is just part of the deal. It's part of what we get to enjoy on the way down. So I did a little bit of research and looked at various articles and so forth about what the process of aging was. And what I landed on for the purposes of this video is a really nice article by the CDC about the different mechanisms of aging, both physically and mentally. And I'm going to be referring to that article today on this video. It's going to be the basis of it. But I'll leave a link down below in the description so you can look that up as well and take a peek at it. Maybe look at some of their other resources, which are pretty vast. But take a peek at it. But what we're going to talk about are now we're not going to be talking about how to overcome these. Those might come in subsequent videos where we'll look at strategies of how to overcome this or that. Today we're just identifying them, and so they're not boogeymen. They're just the reality. They're part of what we're looking forward to as we go through this aging process and walk down the path. So, first on the list for the CDC were the heart and blood vessels. Now, the process of aging means that the blood vessels are losing their elasticity, they're hardening, they're stiffening. And because of that, the heart has to work harder to push the blood through those hardened vessels. That leads to hypertension, to high blood pressure. And that's a normal part of the process. It makes it difficult to do long-term exercises or walking uphill. It's a struggle. Yes, those are some of the ways to combat that happening is by doing those things and to the best of your ability. But again, we'll leave that to another day. But the process of aging in the heart and blood vessels is the process of them stiffening. Bones were number 2 on the list. Now, bones shrink. They reduce in density, and they become more brittle, more fragile, more prone to breakage and fractures. So it doesn't take quite the same amount of pressure on a bone to cause it to fail. And it's not uncommon to see that happen with older people, that they'll fall and they'll break a hip or they'll break a hand or what have you in a fall. It's pretty common. Cartilage is related to this. Cartilage kind of soothes the transition in joints and so forth, and we lose cartilage, and that can lead to joint pain and arthritis and those types of issues. So bones, cartilage was number 2 on the list. Muscles. Muscles, we start to lose strength in them, flexibility in them, even muscle mass. The aging process starts a whole lot sooner than what we actually think happens. In our 30s, we start to lose muscle mass to the tune of 3 to 5% of our muscle mass per decade. And that continues until we get into our 60s, and then it accelerates and we start losing muscle mass at an even faster clip. So muscles are going to abandon us. There are certainly those people that fight back against that, and we have all seen the pictures of those octogenarians that look like Schwarzenegger, but that's an outlier, and I don't think everybody is going to make that commitment to maintain muscle mass going into their aging years. But the loss of it is normal. It's part of how we age, and it is what it is. Bladder and bowels were next on the list, and I don't think I probably need to flesh that out too much for you if you suffer from it. Interesting to me was that the bladder issue is really caused from a shrinkage of the bladder, which means that it can hold less urine and causes you to need to go to the bathroom more frequently to empty it, because it doesn't get as big. It shrinks and contracts and expands. And anyway, because it doesn't expand back as well as it did when we were younger, it's not going to hold as much, and off you go to the bathroom, getting you up a couple of times a night during your sleep, perhaps. I know one of my buddies I'm talking to out there. But anyway, that's also a normal thing. Part of what you're seeing that's kind of a through line to this is the lack of elasticity, the hardening, the stiffening of tissue. And so that's part of the process of getting older. Skin is also on that list. It's the next thing that the CDC lists. And this is sort of it just sticks in my craw about skin, because there are real elements about skin that are impactful to us. Skin gets less elastic, which it causes us to wrinkle. That's the big concentration on a social level as far as skin is concerned. But it also becomes thinner, and because of that, it can bruise and cut more easily. Some of the blood vessels and so forth can wind up being seen through it. It becomes more translucent. A lot of this is cosmetic, and there's an entire industry surrounding addressing this one issue of aging, and it's a billion-dollar industry. It's just, there's an incredible amount of products sold, to keep us looking younger. No matter what you look, you're not younger. You're still getting older. Do it with some pride. That's an editorial, sorry, but that's how I feel. Getting older is not a curse. It's a blessing, because the alternative is not. So, the next one on the list is vision, near and dear to my heart. Now, if you were not afflicted by poor vision as a youngster, which many of us are, it's part of the aging process, and it won't be a big surprise if you have to cope with this as you get older. When I turned 40, I was transferring to a new job, and I was making sure I took advantage of all the benefits that I had at the old job before I went through my waiting period on my new job. So I went to the eye doctor, and as I went, I discovered that I needed glasses. So I was surprised by this, because I had gone through my adult life without them and never needed them. And I said, why? Why is this happening to me? And the doctor looked at me and said, you're 40. That was the answer. And that everything was encompassed in that answer. So it's a normal thing. And that's what the doctor was telling me. This is just part of the process. What happens is the lenses on our eyes starting to harden. Again, there's that lack of elasticity, the hardening of things, the lack of the stiffening of things. But that happens to the lenses, and farsightedness becomes a really common affliction of age, meaning that you can see far pretty easily, but when it comes to up close, reading, etc., things start to become tough. And that's what happened to me. I have a slight correction for far distant vision, but for the most part, it's this close-up stuff, and I have to have my glasses. And that was a function of age. No way to get around it. Other things get more serious. Cataracts can cause blurring of the vision that can't be cleared any other way but by surgery. And if it's not addressed, it can actually cause blindness. So it's not something to be trifled with. So that was vision. And those were the list of the things that the CDC had for physical indications of aging and what's happening to our bodies. The next two transferred to the brain. And the first one was mental health. Mental health is a two-edged sword. Mental health can be an incredible challenge to the aging population, or it can be an incredibly liberating time of their lives. A lot of that has to do with privilege, what your situation is as you age, whether the basics of life are taken care of and not a challenge, or whether you're literally fighting for your survival, not only physically, but socially and economically. So isolation is an issue. People start to lose their social framework. They leave work, and that part of the element of the social life is gone. People start to leave the world, and they are left with fewer and fewer people around them. Family members may be busy at the time of their lives, that they're just not able to give the kind of support that might be necessary. And the worlds start to close in, and the walls close in, and depression can become a part of the aging process. Lack of capabilities, the ability to drive, the ability to ride a bike, the things that we have taken for granted. I've mentioned that on this channel before, that if you have the capability to do something right now, do it, because it's not a given. It's not a forever thing. The loss of these kinds of capabilities can lead to depression. Now, the other side of the coin is it can be a time of release of a lot of the responsibilities and the day-to-day grind of life, of making a living and so forth, and has all dissipated, and there's this glorious time of exploration, or just diving into the things that truly mean something to you. The hobbies video that I did just recently is sort of related to that. This is a time that can be devoted to things that have personal importance and resonance for you, because some of the other stuff that has taken you away from all of that is gone, and you don't have to deal with it anymore. So it can be this time of release and the time of your life, or it cannot be. And so mental health is a factor in aging. Either way, it's absolutely a factor in your aging process. There's an awareness of that you're approaching the finish line, and whether that is a celebration or a loss, that's going to take you in one direction or another in terms of mental health. Now, the other part of brain aging has to do with memory and thinking, cognitive abilities. Now, I talked briefly about, I did another video about the frustration of memory loss. And for me at 63, it's starting to become apparent. I'll go through the Rolodex and I can't find the card. It's in there and I can't find it. It's incredibly frustrating. One that just keeps, it's just kind of funny to me, but it's frustrating, but it's sort of funny because it's recurring. You may know the actor Rip Torn. Well, I frequently will blank on that name, and I want to call him Rock Stone. Rip Torn, well, you get it. But anyway, that happens to me with a fair amount of rapidity. Don't know why I made that connection, but anyway, interesting. But those types of things are normal. That's normal aging process. Short-term memory loss. Where did I put the keys? Where's my phone? I just put my phone down. Where's my phone? All of that's kind of normal. Going beyond normal is when we start seeing the early signs and then the unfortunate later signs of dementia. A completely different conversation. Part of it's normal, dementia is not, and 1 out of 3 people beyond their 80s is going to be afflicted with dementia, which is a pretty daunting percentage, almost in the mid-30s. That's pretty high. Good shot of getting to that state. So this is something that I think is more devastating as you feel it coming on you and see this blanket starting to cover you. Once covered, I don't know that it's quite the same burden. I'm not sure. I think it varies from one victim of this affliction to the next. Some are lost in it and are not really afflicted by it anymore, and others have some kind of hint, some cognitive hint of it being there and being part of them. But the victims of the supporters of these people, the support team, they have a great burden as well. It's a tough time, and this is also a memory and thinking are definitely part of the aging process, and the lack of the mitigating of the crispness of it is normal. And then of course there's the devastation of dementia. So these were the categories that the CDC listed as the normal part of the aging process. Again, we're not going to be talking about how to overcome any of these on this video. We're just identifying them, taking the fear factor out of them and saying, yeah, this is reality. This is true. These are true. This exists. This is part of what I have to face as I get older and find whatever coping skills I need to find to be able to cope with these things, because they're real. They exist. So I hope this was helpful. My idea is to demystify these things and stop making them so personal, and just know that they're universal and they're something that the world has always dealt with forever, since the beginning of two-legged humanoids. So anyway, if this was helpful, subscribe, like the video, like the podcast if you're listening, and come back, start a community, leave some comments, tell me what you thought of this, if it was useful, if it was offensive to you in some way. It doesn't matter. Let me know. Comments are useful. It's the only way that I can grow and adapt the channel to better serve you, and that's what we're trying to do. So if you can, tell some people, help us grow. So I'm Link. This has been Progressively Older, and until the next time that we get to get together, I will see ya.